So we bought a 2023 Surron X, and you want to know what the top best 5 mods are. Let's get into it. So first of all, on this here unit, we've got the handle grips. These grips, they kind of, once you get a little sweat on, a little bit of dirt on them, pretty slippery. Second, if you're a little bit of a shorter guy, you'll notice that when you're sitting on the bike, you have to kind of lean forward on these flat bars to really get a good grip on it. So we're going to change that. Third mod that I would recommend is that if you do crash, having direct stem mounts is a lot better because your handlebars will tweak and they'll slide around on your stem, which is not the best. Next up, if you do crash again, these are made out of cast, so they're pretty susceptible to snap and crack. So we got ourselves a nice mod to fix that. And last is the fact that you have no grip on the pegs. So we're gonna fix those too. So to fix the handlebars, we went ahead and got ourselves some nice Deity handlebars. These are a 3-inch rise, and they are 31.8 millimeter, I believe. Next up, to mount those handlebars, we went ahead and got ourselves some nice RSX direct mount stem handlebar risers. So you can see, we've got some nice risers for the bars, and these are direct stem, so that if you do crash, your handlebars won't spin on the stem. To top off the handlebar setup, of course, we had to go with the OG classic Pro Taper pillow tops. Got ourselves some nice CNC aluminum foot pegs. These bad Larrys will give you all of the grip that you need on your feet. Another classic Surron mod, the peg brace. These go between your pegs to kind of make it a little triangle to give a little bit more of structural integrity on the peg braces. Let's get into installing it. So we're gonna go ahead and start by taking these bolts and loosening them up. You don't have to take them all the way out, you're just kind of releasing it so that they're not super tight and squeezing your stem. Now you're gonna take your pliers and you're gonna pinch this little piece of rubber right here and just lift up, and that will reveal the third bolt. So we're gonna go ahead and take the same size and just crack that off and take this you're gonna wanna take right out. So when you take this off, this whole cover will come off, just like that, and it will reveal your stem. So next step is gonna be to remove your brakes, your throttle, and your little heads-up display. Go right in here, and we're gonna start off with your throttle. So we're gonna go ahead and break this loose, nice and loose, and then you're just gonna wanna kind of twist it side to side and slowly pull out, and that will get you pretty much there. So now what you're gonna wanna do is when you get towards the end here, you'll see that your throttle cable is getting pretty tight. So you're gonna pop this up just a little bit, how we had it resting on the stem, and bring it over so your throttle cable isn't as extended. So you can see there's a little bit more slack now, and that will get it off the final little bit away. Then you're just gonna wanna set it down somewhere like that. Then when you get there, just pop that back on just a little bit to hold it. Next thing is gonna be your brake on this side. You're gonna do the same thing, same size. Pop these loose. So you're just gonna remove this all the way, and you're just gonna pop it off like that. Then again, if I were you, I'd just kind of loosely tighten this back so that you don't lose anything. Your left-hand side, you're gonna have to remove the monitor before the brake, which is a little Phillips head. Let's go ahead and take this all the way off. And drop the screw right out. There's one, there's two. So you're gonna be able to pull this apart. And there is a wire here at the top, so don't rip it off. Just kind of gently remove it a little bit, just like that. So you can expose the bolts on the front here for, that would be your rear brake. Them all the way out. There's one. And there's two. So now when you have the backside bracket off right there, all of this is just going to come right off. And again, I would just tighten these up just a hair to make sure that you don't lose anything, and especially on this so that you don't accidentally pull those cables apart a little bit. So now you can just go ahead and take your handlebar and lift it right off. And there you go, it's free to go. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and start the installation process. So we're going to use the exact same sized hex as we used for pretty much everything else on here. And we're going to go ahead and take out these 4 bolts that are holding on your headlight. Alright, so now that you're taking this last one off, your headlight bracket will be loose. So just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and just make sure it doesn't fall. I'll just set it right there. So for these, you can see these are the bolts that the kit comes with, and these are your stock bolts. So you can see they're just a hair bit longer. So you are going to have to use the bolts that the kit comes with versus the stock bolts. So you're going to take your bolts, you're going to line these up, and you're going to want to keep it so the orientation so that these sit on the outside. So you're going to want to think of it like it's wrapping the stem. You're going to want to line up the headlight bracket, and then you're going to put this down on top of it, kind of like this. So you're just going to want to make sure the holes line up, and you're just going to want to slowly put that in and just line up all the holes first. Same thing, line up the holes to make sure that bracket sits where you want it to. So now you're just going to want to go through and tighten all these bolts up. And what the good thing about these bolts is they come with some little bit of Loctite on them, so you don't have to worry about that. And this will push your headlight down a little bit, so it won't be able to get adjusted up as much, but it will fit. So I'm just going to want to snug all these up nice and tight. Alright, there they are. So now you're going to want to take the exact same size hex, and we're going to go ahead and remove these front clamps. So here we got ourselves our nice new handlebar set up. So what you're going to want to do to install this is you're going to want to drop it right in there. These, you're going to want to kind of pinch your handlebar with one finger and just drop these back on top. Alright, once this starts getting tight, just back them off just a hair so that they have a little bit of play. That way your handlebars move just a little bit, and you're going to want to come to the front and line them up so that they sit nice and straight in the mounts. So you can see how you have lines on either side. So you have lines here, and then you have lines over here. So you're going to want to make sure those lines are centered, and then you're going to start rotating the handlebars up to roughly where you want to get. You can kind of just eyeball this. If you really, really want to, you could always measure the distance between the line and the mount, or if you really wanted to. But for right now, that looks pretty centered, and I like roughly where the handlebars are. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock these in where they are now. So again, just work your way around the 4 and just clamp it down. So just make that nice and tight, and now those handlebars are locked right in there in that mount. So now we're going to go and start reinstalling all of our brakes and monitors and all that stuff. We're going to go ahead and just slide that right on there like that. Spin it down so your cable's on the bottom. Next, we'll do the front brake. The bracket right onto there. And then this top bracket, again, paying attention to the arrows up. Arrows go up, and you're just going to want to thread these back onto the back of the brake. So we'll leave that loose for now, and at the very end we'll do our final we'll sit on the bike and find where we want the lever to sit up and down and do our final tightening. So now let's jump over to the other side. So we're going to go ahead and put the brake on first. So we're going to go ahead and take this bracket back off. Same on the other side, we're just going to leave that a little loose so that we can adjust it at the very end. And you're just going to want to stick this up and in, and then wrap it back around the handlebar like so. Once you get that in there a little bit, we'll go ahead and put the top screw in. Make sure everything lines up. And same with this, we'll just leave it a little bit loose right now so we can do our final adjustments when we're actually sitting on the bike and we can see where we want it. So to remove your old handle grips, most of the time, unless you want to spend some serious time with soapy water or something to kind of slowly squeak this off, the best way to do it is just a little knife. Just make sure you don't cut yourself.
Or the cameraman.
Or the cameraman. And then your grip will come apart like that and you can just take it right off. On the inside of the grip, you'll have an R. And on the other side, you'll have an L. So this is your right and this is your left. The difference is the outer diameter of this hole is a little bit bigger and this one's a little bit smaller. So this is your throttle side, because if you look at the bars, you can see that this is a little bit skinnier than this side. Sorry, anyway, quick little thing for you guys. On these, do not use an oil base, because the oil will never evaporate, so it will always stay on the grip, and that will also cause your grip to potentially slide off. So I would not recommend using something of this nature. We're gonna go ahead and take the right side, and we're just gonna take your finger and kind of just rub the inside of this and maybe a little bit of water on this. The reason why I use water is because it will evaporate. Now, let's go ahead, line up your hole, and now just kind of work it back and forth onto your bar. A little bit of water in there, a little bit on the bar end. And let's go ahead and line this side up. And just push it right on there. So just go ahead and line this bolt back up. We'll tighten that back up. Put our little rubber sealer right back on top. Final lineups with our brake levers and monitor. So the way I'd recommend doing this is just getting right up on the bike. Push the brake over, just like so. And then you're gonna say, okay, depending on the height, you're gonna want this right about here, I'd say, is a comfortable pull for me. Not too high, not too low. And so now you're gonna wanna spin the monitor out of the way so that you have access to your two bolts. Tighten them up, make sure they're tight, like that. And now, your rear brake is where you want it. So then we're gonna spin the monitor down. That feels like a pretty good spot to me. So we'll go ahead and jump back over to our Phillips head, and we'll tighten up those bolts from the back. So that side's done. Switch back over to our hex, and we'll do the same thing real quick with our front brake. So we'll pivot this up, slide it over a little bit, and if I push the throttle all the way, or the brake all the way over, see how it lines up with the flat? How I can pull it? If it's not, and it's like this, you can't pull the brake. So just make sure that when you're doing this, your throttle, the flat spot in the throttle housing, lines up so you can fully pull the brake. So just make sure that it clears the throttle. You might have to spin it just a little bit, and then go ahead and tighten up your brake. Again, and we'll go ahead and make sure our throttle's lined up with the flat spot, and we'll tighten up these bolts. Now we got ourselves a nice handlebar setup. Alright, next up we're going to go ahead and install our peg brace. So I would highly recommend that you pull off the non-kickstand side, and we're going to pull these two bolts out. There's one, there's two. So you take this whole bracket right off. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to take this side, we're going to sneak it across, and we're going to line it up with hole number 3. And then on this side, we're going to line it up with hole number 3, and then we're just going to put these bolts right back in. There you go. It's a nice solid mounting point. You shouldn't have any slop moving back and forth. This should just be solid in there. You shouldn't be able to spin, and this will save you from having to rebuy these brackets if you've ever dumped the bike. Now let's move on to the final part of this, which is going to be your foot pegs. So for this, you're going to want to get a 14mm socket, and you're going to want to run it right on the back of this bolt here, right here. So we're going to go ahead and break this loose. And just pop out just like that. Okay, go over to the other side real quick, do the same thing. All right, we get ourselves into a vise to make this a little bit easier for us. All right, so we got our new foot peg and our old foot peg. So the new foot pegs, as you can see, will use this old bracket. So we're gonna have to go ahead and take that off and then reinstall it on this one. So to make your life a lot easier, go ahead and use a vise. We'll just open this thing up, and we will pinch it right on the bottom half right there. Lock it in. Make sure it's tight so it doesn't move. Rotate this if you need to, get a little bit of a better hit on it. This is honestly the hardest part. Once you get that off, go ahead and set it aside. Pop your washer. Tap your pin down. Release it. Flip it. Go ahead and, again, keep your finger on the spring so you don't get hit with it. Tighten that right up. Just work your pin out. Pop your pin. Pull this out. Again, remember, hook side goes in here. So hook side will go into there again. Go ahead and just compress and drop your pin in. Go ahead, put it back in your vise, lock it, drop your washer on, and drop your locker on. Line it up, just like that. And go ahead and take your little pliers and click back on. Make sure everything's tight, make sure everything's lined up. Now let's go reinstall it on the bike. Alright boys, now let's get these things reinstalled. So as you see these holes in the bottom, you're going to line those up with your little pegs that stick out. So you slide this in, you'll twist it until the peg kind of gets locked in. And then you're going to thread that nut on the back side. Alright, so there you go boys, everything's tightened up. Now just to show you here, that's how the spring works on both sides. So little wings, they'll click right up and they'll bounce back down. So everything looks looking pretty good, and that's pretty much our last mod. So there's your top couple mods to make your Surron into an absolute weapon. I'll leave the link to all these parts in the description. Most of these are even on Amazon, and you can pretty much get them next day shipping, which makes everything so much easier, so much simpler. So we'll leave some links in the description and try them out for yourself, boys. Good luck.